This video is brought to you by PrizePicks. So this is the first day of Browns camp where I can legit report back that people were saying good things about the quarterbacks today. From all reports, it seems like Deshaun Watson had his best day of practice. It seems like Shedeur had a decent day of practice, and Dylan Gabriel also had a decent day of practice. So really excited to talk about that, show some of the highlights here from camp. Before we get into that, I got to talk about the injuries so far, because they're starting to pile up, right? Manuel Foyce put out this tweet here. These are all the Browns who did not practice today. So Joe Royer out for personal issues. He's been out for about a week now with personal issues. Hopefully everything with him is okay. Miles Bryant, Michael Burton, Damari Mathis, Carson Schlesinger, Mike Hall Jr., Parker Brailsford, Ezon Miller, who I think just signed with the team yesterday, Elijah Chapman, Elgin Jenkins, Tevin Jenkins, Jamari Thrash, Sam Kamara, Kalea Davis, Mason Graham, and Malik Collins. I mean, that's pretty much your entire defensive tackle room that's out right now. So I'm a bit concerned about like the amount of injuries piling up already. It doesn't seem like that's a good thing. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 people who aren't practicing. 2 because of pre-disclosed things. So 13 people injured throughout that were playing at the start of camp. It's a bit concerning, right? Especially at some of these positions like the offensive line where, especially like center, where you got Elgin Jenkins out, who's supposed to be your starting center. And then you have Parker Brailsford out, who's supposed to be in competition for starting center. So like we're playing Kendrick Green today, who I think just came back from injury from yesterday. Miles Bryant being out, like we need to see him improve at corner, right? At slot corner, you know what I mean? The good news is that like it's not a ton of big ticket names, right? It's just like Carson Schlesinger and Mason Graham and probably like I throw Elgin Jenkins in there. It's like the big ticket guys who are out. But yeah, a significant amount of injuries. It's not something to freak out about or panic about, but I would keep an eye on that, right? Because the Browns have ran a pretty physical camp, dating all the way back to OTAs and mini camps. And one of the downsides of running a physical camp is that you get more injuries because guys are, of course, being more physical, right? Now, there's 2 schools of thoughts with this, which is, hey, we're getting some of the small stuff out the way so that these guys don't miss time during the season. And the other school of thought is, this is stupid. Why are we having people miss time, right? I'm more of an old school guy when it comes to if camp should be physical, injuries and all of that. I think you should have a physical camp because I think, even if you have small injuries during camp, as long as they're not major, I believe it builds up kind of a toughness, a callus that makes it so that you're not missing guys with injury as much. So that's just my personal belief. I'm not like upset at this. I want to keep an eye on this because you don't want this number to balloon to like 25 or something like that. But me personally, my personal philosophy on football, I don't mind it. But I can see where other people like want to avoid this at all costs. I think you deal with this now, you deal with less soft tissue injuries in the fall. I think if you don't deal with this now, you're going to deal with a bunch of soft tissue injuries in the fall. You know what I mean? So like for me, that's what the trade-off is, but that's not scientifically proven to be true. You know what I mean? That's just my vibe on that thing. There's probably studies that contradict that, and maybe that's where they should go with how they view things. But that's just how I do it. So that's the injury report. It's pretty significant. Todd Monken talked before practice, said a couple of interesting things. This quote is picked up from Cam Justice. Obviously, this is about the starting order for each preseason game. So there's been a report out that Deshaun's going to start one, Shedeur's going to start one, and that's kind of how the decision is going to be made. That makes sense. That's a pretty old school way to do it, and I don't mind that. Obviously, if it's still a competition at the time, why wouldn't you start one and start the other one, then go from there? So it seems like he basically confirmed that is going to be the case if it's still a competition. And it looks like it's still going to be a competition. I know Deshaun had a good day today, but we've been through this with Deshaun where he has a good day of practice. We think it's building on to something, and then 3 weeks later, we're like, oh, Deshaun looks bad. You know what I mean? So that's there. He had an interesting quote about a situation with Spencer Fano and Jared Verse, talking about Jared Verse's leadership. I thought this was worth listening to. So I got the video here. We're going to listen to this quote.
I mean, we're so lucky you're Brown. I mean, holy shit, how cool is this? Because he's not only a great leader, he works his rear end off every day, and after practice, he's trying to get Spencer better. And I watched it. I stood right behind it. And I'm like, I'm listening to what he's talking about. And it was like bang, 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 bang. It was like 5 reps in a row of his footwork and then talking through what he was going to do and how he could redirect and how he could use his hands and punch. And it was like within 5 reps, I saw it. I saw Spencer get better. And it was him teaching him like he was a coach. And it was awesome.
Did he win any plays?
What's that?
Did Spencer win any plays?
He won his fair share of plays. I mean, I can't remember how many or what the ratio was, but Jared's a hard guy to go against, man. When he ramps it up, he's a hard guy to go against, which is a good thing for us.
So that was awesome to hear that Jared Verse is taking that leadership and taking that to the next step, right? For all the things that people say, oh, he does this, Miles want to do that. That's really one of the things that like Jared Verse is willing to do. And it's more helpful when it's Jared Verse because like as good as Miles wasn't a teacher, right? There were times where Miles tried to teach people stuff, but like he's so physically talented that he ends up being a pretty ineffective teacher. I don't know, like I think Mason Graham credited him with a lot of stuff, so I don't want to say he's terrible, but like he suggests things that sometimes aren't the most useful to the average person, right? I talked about this when Miles was here about like how he tried to help Alex Wright. And Alex Rice is sitting there like, I can't do any of this stuff that you're asking me to do because I'm not physically capable of it. And that's why like having somebody who is more of an average athlete that was like Zadarius Smith was helpful for, I think, IMAC and Alex Wright, because that's a guy who had to figure out how to get it without those gifts. Right. Jared Verse is similar, right? Jared Verse is a guy who came up from FCS football, worked his way all the way up to Florida State, worked his way up to the first round of the draft. Like he has more of a workman quality about himself, which means that he's more effective, I think, as a teacher because he understands all of the little steps that have to go to get better. And if you listen to Jared Verse, they just dropped like a mic'd up of Jared Verse. And a lot of people were talking about how much Jared Verse, like just like straight up, he just nonstop intensity, right? And I love that about Jared Verse. But the other thing that I think people need to point out is that Jared Verse reminds me of like, he has the same personality that a lot of defensive line coaches have. Like you could tell if he wants to stay in football after his career, he's going to be a coach. Like he has the personality of a coach. And I think that translates well to being able to help guys improve, right? And this is the kind of good on good that we've wanted to see where, Jared Verse helps push Spencer Fano to the next level, because the biggest thing with Spencer Fano is learning how he needs to play with power and learning how to use his base. So I was excited to hear that they're working on feet with Fano. Fano has pretty good feet, pretty athletic feet. It's a matter of just understanding when to use his feet to kind of build that base and anchor he needs to. And given that Jared Verse is so prolific with the bull rush, I think that's a perfect person to learn that lesson from. You know what I mean? So you love to hear stuff like that. That's the kind of culture that you want the Browns to have, not just here at the beginning of the season, but also at the end of the season, right? This is why I talk about culture so much for this year. I don't know what the win-loss record's going to be for this team. It's probably going to be under 500. But if you can still be at a place where that's the kind of stuff going on between your veterans and your young players, right, where they're still working really hard on trying to get better, and that improvement is showing itself in wins and losses at the end of the season and in just the physical play of these guys, then you know you're building something worth keeping, right? And this is a sign of something you want to see now, but I also would love to hear stories like this later on in the season, right? Even if the record's not that great, I want to hear stories like this, right? So that's a really good sign. We're going to get into some of the highlights that happen at practice, but first, I got to thank my sponsor, PrizePicks. PrizePicks is a fun way to earn cash while you watch your favorite teams. No complex betting rules, just pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. Here are my picks for this upcoming season, AFC North edition. Jimmy Bernard, I have less than 475. This has to do with volume available in Pittsburgh's offense. Quincy Judkins, I have over 975. Browns improved line. I think the run game's going to be better with it. Chase Brown, under 900 yards. Joe Burrow equals less rushing yards usually for the Bengals offense. Mark Andrews, more than 475 yards. Lamar's going to need a safety blanket. Check to see if PrizePicks is available in your state. You could follow me on the app at Quinn_C to see all my lineups. Download the PrizePicks app today. Play $5 and get $50 in lineup to download the app using the link in the description. All right, so Deshaun Watson had himself a good day at practice. There's some highlights. Shout out to Dan Lab. He got some really good footage of a lot of this stuff, so make sure you go follow Dan Lab. But a nice throw here to Jerry Jeudy over the middle of the field. I'll run it back for you guys so you can see it again. Nice throw there to Jerry Jeudy, so you love to see stuff like that. Jerry Jeudy he's so interesting, right, as a player, because he is probably the one that Browns fans want to get rid of the most, because Jerry Jeudy does stuff that's annoying, right? But wide receiver is one of those positions where you want a surplus, and the Browns aren't at a surplus yet. I know people are thirsty to get rid of some people, but like they should keep Cedric Tillman. They should keep Jerry Jeudy, because those guys make you frustrated when they're your first and second option, but if they're your second and fourth option, then that's really good depth to have there, right? And I think the less you're forced to put Jerry Jeudy in situations where he historically has not been good, the more useful Jerry Jeudy will be. He's kind of the Tobias Harris of wide receivers, right? Where Tobias Harris is going to get you 12 and 12. Well, no, Tobias Harris is going to get you 15 and 8, right? But if you ask Tobias Harris to get you 30 and 8, he'll get you 15 and 8. And that's kind of just what you get with Jerry Jeudy, right? Like if you are asking Jerry Jeudy to do things over the middle of the field, to win routes, he's going to be good for you. If you're asking Jerry Jeudy to catch over contact and do all this like X receiver shit, he's not going to do that for you. Daniel Fuise, another tweet here. Deshaun Watson had some rough practices to start camp, but he's off to a good start in team drills. Hits Jerry Jeudy on a curl here from Casey Concepcion in an in-breaker earlier. So here is a different angle. I think this is the same play. It might be a different play. Yeah, it's the same play. So it's a different angle with the same play. But, looks like Deshaun finding some rhythms with his young guys. 7-on-7 order was Watson, Gabriel, Sanders between the early 11-on-11 and 7-on-7 periods. This is the best Watson start by a miles. I already look great. And again, I tend to temper my expectations with Deshaun Watson, because it's not that I think that he's so washed that he can't have a good practice. It's just that we've seen him have good practices. So will it translate to a game is the bigger thing, right? Because he had a pretty bad week of practice to start camp, pretty bad 2 weeks of practice, comes back here, has a good practice. Maybe this starts some momentum for him, or it might be just an outlier. We got to really see with Deshaun Watson before we can ever get excited about it. Again, my philosophy with Deshaun Watson, treat him like you would treat somebody who owes you money. Right? The same way when somebody owe you money, you ain't trying to hear the stories about how they going to get you back. They might even give you double, when they get their check. That check that don't ever come, right? Oh, just wait till I get my check. I got you, right? Or if you ever had somebody owe you money, or God forbid you're watching this channel and you somebody who owes somebody money, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? I don't care what you got to say until my $20 is in my hands, right? Like, that's all I care about. Don't tell me about no check. Don't tell me you just got this interview. I don't care about none of the small details in between. Give me my money, right? And that's the thing with Deshaun Watson, right? We can get the ups, lows, all this stuff. Brother, you owe me money. You know what I mean? And until you give me my money, I'm not about to sit here and get excited, okay? Give me my money back. That's what you have to be like with Deshaun, right? That's how I encourage everybody to handle this whole thing with Deshaun. To treat him like he owe you money. Dan Lab with a really great angle at this touchdown throw from Deshaun to Denzel Boston. And I'm hearing every day amazing things about Denzel Boston. Let's see if he gets two down here. That's catch, possession. Look at him fighting through that contact. When's the last time we had a Browns wide receiver who could fight through this much contact? But fights through the contact, catch 1 and 2 in. That's green grass. That's a touchdown. I'm so excited to see what this dude looks like in games, man. He's been looking awesome in camp every day. I mean, like, this is reminding me of Harold Fannin, right? Remember Harold Fannin last year? He came into mini camps, and everybody's like, Harold Fannin might be the best player here. And then we start OTAs, and everybody's like, Harold Fannin is amazing. He's playing amazing with the veterans. And then we get to training camp, and we're like, Harold Fannin is going to be really good, right? That's kind of the vibe I'm getting from Denzel Boston. And I'm hearing great things about Casey Concepcion, too, by the way. You know what I mean? It's not just Denzel Boston. Like, you're hearing that they're very excited about Casey Concepcion. And I think it's like, for all the discussion that we had in the draft, I think somebody brought this up on Twitter. I think it was Browns UK. I saw talk about this. For all the talk on Twitter and online and in the Browns community spaces about how much they needed to draft a wide receiver early because they couldn't get one late, it looks like we might be thrilled with what we got with Casey Concepcion and Denzel Boston. Will individually one of those guys be better than Carnell Tate or Jordan Tyson? That's to be told. It's not a crazy thing to think that a late first-round pick can outperform a early first-round pick. It's happened before. Justin Jefferson outperformed Jerry Jeudy, right? But will the combination of those two wide receivers be more effective than just having one of those guys? I think there's an argument to be had, right? And then you pair that with Spencer Fano, who we just heard from Todd Monken, has the right mindset about everything. Is working with Jared Verse after practice. And I heard yesterday had a pretty good day of practice going back and forth with Jared Verse. You know what I mean? So you love to hear all of these things that you're hearing about the Browns' first 3 selections. And we're hearing that Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, the other second-round pick, is looking excellent in camp. Just good things about this. Like, it feels a lot like last year. You know what I mean? When it comes to the excitement, right? We're talking about Denzel Boston, like we're talking about Harold, like we talked about Harold Fannin. We're talking about Casey Concepcion, like people talked about Quincy when he was at camp because he had a abbreviated camp period, right? Thankfully, that's not going to be the case for Casey Concepcion, right? He's not going to have an abbreviated camp because of something like that. Hopefully he stays on the clean and narrow and all that. But it feels a lot like the 2025 class. And if they hit a double back-to-back home run and draft classes like that, that is going to be something that I've not seen the Browns do in my lifetime. What they did in 2025 with that draft class is not something I've seen them do before. If they do it twice, I know there's a lot of criticism of Andrew Berry. I've been a critic at times of Andrew Berry. But if he manages to pull off 2 back-to-back classes that can be defined as the best in the NFL, then, like, that dude has to stay, right? Like, regardless of if you like him or not, right? Daniel Foyce with some good news about the offensive line, too. We've been hearing that the procedural stuff has been bad, but check out this. Browns QB and offensive line getting increasingly comfortable with the multiple cadences of Todd Monken is installing. Both Watson and Shador have been able to draw defenses off sides today. Another update to that, I was most impressed by the pre-snap operation today. It wasn't perfect. Todd ripped into one wide receiver in one play, but on a day where Cleveland missed his top two centers, the offense won the cadence battle a couple of times. This is what you want to see, right? What you get at the first week of camp, especially for an offense that was in the shape that the Browns offense was in, you were just going to get sloppy operation. You're going to get bad football, right? It's not about what you see in July or early August. It's how it progresses. And this is a positive sign. A better day from your quarterbacks, a better day from the offensive line, a better procedural day. It seems like they're catching up with the installation of this offense, right? Remember, the defense is going to look like hell on wheels because the defense isn't really installing much new. Right? The stuff that'd be new for this defense will be week to week during the season when they're game planning. That's where the difference from Mike Rutenberg and Jim Schwartz is really going to show itself. But by the basic install, that's all going to be the same stuff from last year, right? That is something to pay attention to. It's about the progress. It's not about where they are right now and being, oh my God, we're going to stink. It's going to be the worst thing ever. It's like, okay, this is where they are right now. And that's a baseline. Do they improve? Does the line go up? Right? That's what matters. Right? Imagine that you're buying Brown stock and you bought it at the dip. It's not about if it hits a certain number in the early parts. It's about if the line goes up. That's really it. Daniel Felice wrapped up his thoughts of practice by saying day 7's over. Deshaun Watson, best day so far. He's not the only person who said that. Excellent red zone work. Was comfortable driving the ball outside the 20s too. So good signs from Deshaun. Again, the thing with Deshaun, got to treat him like he owes you money. Consistency, right? I know you can do this once. I know you're capable of. You're a veteran quarterback. Can you do this consistently is the big question with Deshaun. But that is a recap of what happened today at Browns camp. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.